What if I told you that this Nintendo villain was already gone before you ever fought him? Not defeated, not sealed away, gone. And Bonechill might be one of the strongest examples of that in Super Paper Mario. Because on the surface, he feels like nothing more than a late game boss. But the more you look at him, the more it feels like something already happened to him before he ever showed up. And the game never directly tells you what that is. You have to piece it together. Before we get into it, Bonechill actually won the latest poll, and clearly, there's something about this character people want to understand better. Also, quick disclaimer, everything in this video is my own interpretation. Nintendo never fully explains Bonechill directly, but when you start connecting the details, a very different picture starts to form. Let's be honest, most people don't remember Bonechill. Compared to characters like Count Black, Mentio, or even other minions, he barely gets any screen time, no backstory, no build-up, no real dialogue beyond being a threat. He just appears, and then he's gone, which makes him feel like filler, like a final obstacle before the end. But that's exactly what makes him interesting, because Super Paper Mario usually doesn't do nothing characters. Even minor characters have purpose. So why does Bonechill feel so empty? When you actually look at Bonechill, something immediately stands out. He doesn't feel like a character, he feels like a presence, a force. His design is unnatural, cold, hollow, almost incomplete, and his behavior matches that. He doesn't monologue like Count Black. He doesn't manipulate like the Mentio. He doesn't even feel like he understands what he's doing. He just exists to destroy. And that's weird, because in a story full of emotional villains, Bonechill feels completely disconnected from everything else, almost like he doesn't belong there. By the time you reach him, the world of Super Paper Mario is already collapsing. Dimensions are unstable, reality is breaking apart. The Chaos Heart is actively consuming everything, and Bonechill exists right at the edge of that destruction, which raises an important question. What if Bonechill isn't a part of the story, but a result of it? Not a villain with a goal, but something created by a world that's already falling apart. This is where things start to feel different, because Bonechill doesn't just lack personality, he lacks presence. When you fight him, think about what he actually does. He doesn't talk like a character, he doesn't react like a character, he doesn't even feel like a character. There's no emotion behind anything he says or does. No anger, no pride, no desperation, just function. And that's what makes him stand out in Super Paper Mario, because every other major character in this game is driven by something. Count Black is driven by loss, Mentio is driven by control. Even minor villains have some kind of personality or motive, but Bonechill, there's nothing there, and that absence is important, because it doesn't feel like something that was never written. It feels like something that was removed, and whatever made him a character is already gone, and what we're left isn't a person, it's a remainder, a shell, something that still exists physically, but doesn't have anything inside it anymore. And when you look at his design through that lens, starts to make more sense. The hollow structure, the unnatural stillness, the way he feels more like an object than a being. It's not just a design choice, it's a reflection of what he is. Because Bonechill doesn't come across like a villain with a goal, he comes across like something that's already reached the end of its story and kept existing anyway, like the world moved on. But he didn't. And that's where the idea really starts to click. You're not fighting a character at their own peak. You're fighting what's left after everything that made them matter is already gone. What makes this even more interesting is how he contrasts with the rest of the story. Because Super Paper Mario is full of characters driven by emotion, love, loss, grief, even the villains that have reasons. Count Black is driven by heartbreak, Mentio is driven by control, but Bonechill, nothing, no emotion, no motivation, no connection. He's what happens when all that is gone, which makes him less of a villain, more of a warning, a glimpse of what everything in this world is becoming. So when you finally reach Bonechill, it doesn't feel like a normal boss fight. There's no build-up, no emotional confrontation, no sense that you're facing someone with something to prove. It just happens. That's what makes it unsettling, because by the time you meet him, there's nothing left to confront. No personality, no identity, no reason. And that ties directly back to the idea we started with. Bonechill isn't a villain you defeat at the end of a story. He's what's left after the story is already over. Not in a dramatic way, not in a tragic, emotional way like Count Black, but in a quiet, almost invisible way, like something that faded out and was never replaced. And in a game like Super Paper Mario, that's terrifying, because this is a story built on emotion, love, loss, grief. Everything that drives the world forward comes from how the characters feel. So what happens when that's gone? Bonechill is your answer, a character with no emotion in a world that's defined by it, which makes him feel less like a villain and more like a glimpse of what everything is turning into. A world where meaning has started to disappear, where characters don't feel anymore, where nothing is left to fight for. And once you see him that way, the fight itself changes. You're not overcoming something, you're witnessing the aftermath of something that's already happened. And that's why he feels so empty, because there was never anything left to save. Bonechill isn't the most memorable character in Super Paper Mario, but maybe that's the point. He's not meant to stand out, he's meant to feel like something that's already fading away. And once you realize that, you start to see him differently. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. It really helps the video get pushed out. We just hit 100 subscribers, and I got a thank you video coming really soon. So make sure to subscribe, because there are a lot more deep dives and big videos planned over the next few weeks, including a full Paper Mario retrospective. Also, another character poll will be coming soon, so stay tuned for that, and be sure to vote. Thanks for watching, we're only just getting started. Also, be sure to join the Discord and follow my Blue Sky, links in the description below. Make sure to join the Discord, because we're always looking forward to seeing you over there, especially if you're a fan of Paper Mario, or just general Nintendo related stuff. But anyways, with all that said, thanks for watching.